So how can you have a strong mindset and leadership capabilities like a Navy SEAL? Find out today on the Knowledge Boner Experience. All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Knowledge Boner Experience. As always, I have my co-hosts Wally and Funk here. We have an awesome special guest today. He is the founder and CEO of Naked Warrior Recovery, and more importantly, he is a badass. Now, as somebody like myself, you guys know my history being in the military, 6 years of the Air Force. Yeah, I know everyone jokes Chair Force, right? But there is nothing more badass than an actual Navy SEAL, and we have one here today. Going to be dropping some huge knowledge boner moments for each and every one of you. But instead of me going into a story, I want you guys to be able to hear it from himself. But first of all, William Branum, welcome to the show. Happy to have you here, man. How you doing today?
Thanks for having me here on the Knowledge Boner. I love the name of the podcast for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So tell us. I know. I'm not going to bore everyone too much of the details because I know a lot of people are going to want to do their own research and look you up online after watching the show. But 26 years as a Navy SEAL, right? Which, by the way, I mean, absolutely incredible. I can only imagine the experiences that you had been through, physically and psychological. Right. I know from reading your bio and your background story, me just doing 6 years in the Air Force, I'm already like broken and battered. And that's nowhere near to the effect of what you have gone through. So give us a little bit about like your backstory of going from the Navy and then transitioning now here to today.
Yeah. So 26 years, it's actually a little bit of a misrepresentation. I only spent 23 years of my 26 years in the SEAL teams. So there's a little story about me even just trying to get to BUDS. And that was also a mindset shift that I had to do. Just my story getting to BUDS was a lot of mindset stuff. Some of it was, I was like shooting for like the minimum scores instead of the maximum scores, which prevented me from getting to BUDS in the first place, straight out of boot camp. Then there was a time where the Navy said, no, sorry, you're too critical to us in this other job you're doing. We're not going to let you become a Navy SEAL. So I went to the Chief of Naval Operations. And for those of you who don't know what that means, military talk, it's the most senior guy in the Navy. The only people who are more senior to that guy is the Secretary of Defense and the President of the United States. So somehow this guy came to my ship in Yokosuka, Japan, and was like, hey, does anyone have any questions? And I raised my hand. I was like, yeah, I joined the Navy to be a SEAL. I think I deserve a chance to go, but my detailer won't let me go. What do you think? He turns to my commanding officer and says, is he a good guy? He was like, yeah, he's the sailor of the quarter this quarter, which is like employee of the month. And turned back to me and said, check, you'll be in the first class after your time on this ship is up. 6 weeks later, I'm off to California to SEAL training. So I made it through SEAL training eventually, did a bunch of deployments, 10 deployments total, 7 of those to combat, 3 to Afghanistan and 4 to Iraq. Eventually retired 2018, summer of 2018, without a good mission, a good purpose, a good team. So, in the SEAL teams, you have a mission, you have a purpose, and you have a team, and a badass mission, a badass purpose, and a badass team at that. And so when I transitioned out, I lost everything. And it was kind of like, if you've ever seen the movie The Avengers, where Thanos puts the glove on with all the things and snaps his fingers and half the world's population is gone. It was kind of like that for me, where I had like team, mission, and purpose today, and the next day I had nothing. It was gone. And I was like, what the fuck? What do I do? How do I do it? And so I had to go through this process of figuring my shit out. And some of that was I carried a lot of baggage around. I don't call it PTSD or anything else. I call it baggage because we all have baggage. We all have the shit that we put in this bags and we carry it around with us. And, some of it's like shit that other people put in these bags and we end up carrying other people's shit around. And some of, my baggage was from, hazards of the workplace and some of it was from toxic relationships that I was a part of. And so I'm carrying this baggage around and trying to figure out my new mission, my new purpose, and my new, who my new team was. And, I live on a rock in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I live in Hawaii. And so it's very hard to like put all that stuff together. I eventually found CBD for, it's a very popular thing nowadays. I eventually found CBD. And so I had to figure out, okay, so maybe that helped turn this noise down in my head. So I like to say water boils at 210 degrees, and I was probably living at or 212 degrees. I was living at 210 degrees. And after taking CBD, I didn't notice anything when I took it. I just thought that maybe I should take it before it was super popular like it is today. So I took it for that 30 days. And what I noticed at the end of that 30 days is, my fuse is longer. So I went from like living at 210 degrees to 205 to 200 to 195 to 190. So it turned the noise down in my head. It helped, some of the aches and pains that I have on a daily basis. It got me away from that boiling point. And I was like, well, maybe that was placebo. Maybe it was, maybe it was CBD. I stopped taking it. I started getting closer to that boiling point. I went back, I took a different brand, I bought a different brand, and I had similar results. And I was like, there's something to this. There must be. It's having such a positive impact on my life. And so I was at a business conference. I met someone in the CBD industry. She was putting CBD into kinesiology tape. And I was like, hey, you're the CBD girl, right? She was like, yeah. I want to I'm still looking for my team, my mission, my purpose. I was like, I want to be on your team. I want you to be on your CBD team. She was like, so do you want to do A to B, B to B, or B to C? I'm like, I don't know those letters. I want to do C, B, D. And so she was like, okay, well, just start your own CBD company. And I said, I don't know how to do that. And she leaned in and she was like, you're a Navy SEAL. You can figure it out. And then so I asked her for my man card back. May I please have my man card back? She graciously gave it to me, and I put it in my pocket to never give up again. And so she started teaching me a little bit about CBD. She was not in a position to hire me, so I started researching, and I found that the industry is incredibly dirty. It's still dirty today, and this was back in 2019 when I first was really introduced to CBD, and so my mission became, the highest quality CBD on the market. Well, as I, started the company, everyone has like a premium quality CBD. Not everyone. We could go into like CBD, but I don't think that's where we want to go on this podcast. But what as I figured out, like, what's my real mission? What's my real mission in life? What's my new purpose? I looked at myself. I'm a veteran. You're a veteran. And I looked at the statistics of suicide. And I found out that 22 veterans take their lives every single day. We've lost more veterans to suicide than we have in 20 years of sustained combat in 2 theaters of war. I was like, that's fucked up. That's not okay. And then to make it even more personal mission is my dad is one of those 22. So this 22 a day became my mission, our mission at Naked Warrior Recovery. And so that was, so that's how we started. We started at, our mission is 22 to 0. And so now I have a new mission, a new purpose, and now I'm building my new SEAL team. And as I've, gone down this road of like starting a business, finding, coaches to help me figure out like, how do I market an illicit product? I have started to build my personal brand in the get naked mindset. And just to kind of talk about the get naked mindset, that's really about taking your ego off, that baggage I talked about in the beginning. Take that baggage that you carry around, take it off, set it in the corner, become a little bit vulnerable, give yourself the ability to heal and recover like you're supposed to. Because in the SEAL teams, we'll put this armor on and go into harm's way. And sometimes it saves our life and it's awesome. And other times we didn't really need it. But every time we come back from that mission, we take that armor off. We take that crap that we're carrying around off, set it in the corner, hit the showers, recover, rest and recover. And I'm going to stop right there because if I don't, I'll just keep going.
No worries. So that's really interesting. So because before, I know you said before you started taking CBD, you were kind of like at that boiling point, it kind of brought you down, right? So do you feel like that was kind of like a big bringing the boiling point down before getting rid of the baggage was kind of like what was helped to do so? Or do you think like even without that, you wouldn't have been able to get rid of the baggage?
I think so. For me, I just lived with all this noise in my head. The noise was all consuming. And when I talk about exposure fears, I talk about that noise that comes out like when you're alone in your car and you're driving and like you start having these arguments when there's no one else around, or these noises, these thoughts that come out when you're you're trying to get ready for bed or trying to go to sleep. And I could not control this noise in my head. And so what I would do, I would just turn to alcohol and I would pretty much drink myself to sleep. Or if you phrase it a little bit differently, I would drink until I passed out at night. And I don't know how many times that's ever happened to you, but trying to get up the next morning and like get after it and like do like some good quality work. It takes a long time to recover. Maybe I'm finally recovering about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. the day's done and I'm not able to I was just behind and behind and behind. CBD was just a modality that helped turn down the noise enough so that I could have more positive self-talk so that I could actually start my day and get after and figure out what I actually needed to do and how to do it.
See, I'm not sure how much the policy has changed. I remember back when I was in the service, they were really strict about stuff like that, like, CBD.
Yeah.
And all. Is it still like that now for even servicemen when it comes to taking this?
Yeah. So it is, I'll say frowned upon. There's a policy in place that says that no service member shall use any hemp related product. So CBD comes from hemp, not marijuana. You can derive hemp CBD from marijuana. Essentially, they're the same plant. It's just how they're bred. So the hemp plant, it became legal in 2000 after the passing of the Farm Bill of 2018 that made hemp legal. And the definition of hemp is the amount of THC, the molecule THC that's in the hemp plant, which is the dried weight of the hemp plant. It has to have 0.3% or less. So that makes it an industrial product, not a recreational drug product, not a Schedule I product. So hemp, CBD is derived from hemp. So hemp has high levels of CBD, very, very low levels of THC. And then the products that we have, because I'm still a child of Nancy Reagan's war on drugs, just say no, and had that stigma of THC, we remove that molecule THC from our product. So you still get all the other minor cannabinoids, CBD, CBG, CBN, all these other minor cannabinoids and terpenes, which are essential oils that are in the hemp plant. You have over 120 different minor cannabinoids and terpenes. And so they go in and kind of work synergistically with the body. But yeah, I cannot confirm nor deny that I have active duty service members that take my product. However, potentially there could be, but it is policy currently in place that that no service member shall consume CBD or a hemp-based product because it's like whatever.
Right. Because just like you said, I know tons, even when I was in, a lot of people that would go to like alcoholism and stuff like that. But if there's a solution out there under those restrictions, that's kind of the downside. I mean, you're definitely speaking volume to your language too, right? They're very, very active within this industry. They know about it way more than I do as well. But that's interesting. So kind of going, so let's transition now into kind of like the business side of it and mindset, right? So if anyone's listening right now to the show and maybe they have like a bunch of baggage, whether it's something personal, relationship, something that could be holding them back from leadership, because you kind of hit those three things, right? Building a team, having leadership, and what was the third one?
Team, mission, and purpose.
Purpose.
Or
right?
Yeah.
Cool. So how would somebody first of all become aware of the baggage, right? Because I'd imagine awareness would kind of have to be the biggest factor before removing it and being able to go and even build a team or have purpose and stuff, right? So if you were to give anyone kind of gold nuggets of that, how can someone sit here and admit like, okay, cool, I do have baggage? Because I feel like even that's like hard for people to even own up to.
Yeah, I think that's really, really the hardest thing is being brave enough to admit that you have some sort of issue. And that was really one of the big issues with me is I wasn't brave enough because I've spent not even my entire adult life, my entire life, like I grew up as a very poor kid with a very kind of defeatist attitude mentality, but I always wanted to do great things. I'm not a good athlete. I'm not a good, I'm not academic. Found out later on I have, ADHD, and that was well into my adulthood. I thought I was just a dumb kid. And it just took me longer to
arms and traps
to figure stuff out. Yeah. I mean, I was, certainly team sports, I pretty much suck at all of them. I'm always picked last. But in the SEAL teams, I wasn't picked last. I was picked much higher to the, closer to the top because I got really good at some stuff. But what no one could ever see, they would see the outside, or even like I would be forced to when I would in Sunday school, I would have to read from the Bible. First of all, I suck at reading in the first place. Reading out loud in like a public forum is even worse. And then I would mispronounce words or wouldn't know what they were. And then like people were like correcting me, and I'm like, oh, my attitude is just going down and down and down. And so I just feel like I had to work harder than everyone else. But I knew that there was greatness in me. When I was a kid, I wanted to become a ninja and like like Superman or something like that. So, because I watched a lot of Kung Fu theater. But once I heard about the SEAL teams and like that's the hardest military training in the world, it's the most elite organization in the world, and this was long before we had the internet or cell phones or anything else. There were no books about it. There were no movies about it yet, and I was like, that's what I want to do. So I did everything in my power just to get there. So because I grew up with that attitude of like I'm maybe not worthy, but I'm going to work really hard and try to figure it out anyway. I certainly was never, ever going to show any sort of weakness as I was moving up through the ranks, even in the SEAL teams or anywhere else in life. And it wasn't until I knew I was suffering, but I wouldn't even tell anyone, or I wouldn't admit it to myself. So it wasn't until I became brave enough to admit to my own self that I need help. Because, it's kind of like Alcoholics Anonymous. Hey, my name is William Branum. I'm an alcoholic, blah, 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 whatever. Like being brave enough to admit that, hey, my name is William Branum. I have baggage. I need to do something about it. Like just that step of admitting it out loud to yourself is a big step. Most of us, and I'll say this, that most of us, there's probably not very many people out there that don't have baggage. It's just, we can handle it. We're strong, we're independent, we're whatever. And we feel like if we admit that we have problems, then we're admitting that we're weak and we can't handle our own shit. And in reality, the true strength comes from being brave enough to actually admit that you need help.
So what about for other people's team members as well? Because if you're within an organization, obviously we're not the only ones who would have baggage, right? So
yep.
How do you address or even get through that, even bring it up and get on the topic within your own organization, or even notice like signs of something like that?
So I think that's a leadership issue. That's, in the military, we talk about deckplate leadership. So even though I'm, higher rank and I'm in charge of all these guys and sometimes girls as well, because we have females that support us in the SEAL teams and some of the jobs, is really like getting out of this sort of, I like to call it the crystal palace of like, I'm elite and I'm in charge and you do my bidding. It's like getting up and going down and talking to those people that are at the deck plate level, the people who are actually moving the needle for the organization. In the SEAL teams, it's the guys that are out kicking doors and going in and doing business. In the corporate world, oftentimes it's the sales people or the operations people, those people handling all the logistics. Getting, from this leadership position, going down and like talking to people, like, what's going on with you? How you doing? How's the family? And just asking basic questions, getting to know people, getting to know them on a personal level. Once you do that enough and you build the trust with that person, and this can happen at all levels of leadership in an organization. It can be, it could be just 2 people to like 2,000 people, getting, and having that leadership level all the way, high, middle, and low level leadership, getting to know your people and knowing when they're not performing and when if it's just they're just not capable of performing, or if they have like serious issues that they have to deal with. It's like peeling back the onion on your people and finding like, oh, you used to perform really well. Something is definitely not right. So let's figure out what that is. But it's like, you have to first establish a trust and then, break down that wall that they may have up, and then eventually ask, is everything okay? And you would be surprised that if you ask it enough, people will eventually break down because they actually want you to help them, but they're just afraid to ask.
For sure. So Fung, for you coming from kind of a corporate background, do you feel like that's definitely something that has been lacking even from the world that you came from?
Oh yeah, 100%. First of all, William, I really love your story, man. I've just been sitting here listening, and I can definitely appreciate your mindset that you've had so far, right? For myself, I've come from a corporate space. I'm an IT professional. I worked in telecommunications for almost 10 years, right? And then it's an interesting question talking about leadership currently right now. I was having this discussion with my older brother, who also is in a leadership position in the corporate space. And I would love just your opinion on this, really. Do you feel like that the pandemic really exposed leadership right now? Because I see a lot of teams like running array, and just from my own like friend groups and stuff like that, how much complaint that I hear and just from the lack of leadership. And it's like these leaders don't know how to actually be leaders, right? And so do you feel like that this pandemic's really exposed that?
Yeah, I think that's a great example and a great kind of a great question. Yes, the short answer is yes, and then I'll tell you why. Because we became used to working in an environment of like, you show up and you do your 9 to 5 or 8 to 7 or whatever your thing is, and I see this in the government, like government positions, quite a lot. You show up, you check the box, you punch your time card, and you show up and you do your 8 hours a day, and then you leave. And maybe you're productive and maybe you're not, but you're really graded on being in the office. You're not graded really on what you're producing. And so that kind of culture, that traditional corporate culture, it doesn't teach people how to be independent. And so what we have in the SEAL teams, we have what we call a decentralized command and control. So in order to do that, in the pandemic really exposed a lot of that for a lot of organizations. Like, you have this one single point of failure, this one leader up here who's like in charge of like, okay, do this and do that, and like go over here and take out the trash and write that code and do some other stuff. And but they don't teach people how to be leaders. They don't teach them how to be independent. And so in the SEAL teams, me as a leader, I don't want to be this single point of failure. Like, if something happens to me, the mission still needs to get done. We're out in the field, I get shot, I'm completely incapacitated. Okay, so in the SEAL teams, we have what we call decentralized command and control. So me as a leader, that's great that I can lead the team, but what I want to do is I want to empower everyone else in the team to make their own decisions. If we're clearing a building and we're and I go in, it's the four of us and we're going in. If Dylan goes left, then Wally's going to go right, and we all know that. If me as a leader, I'm going to stand back and I'm going to let my smaller teams go and do the things that they do. You already know what needs to be done because you've been trained to do that. And I think most organizations, they like to have that control over the team because they feel like they're going to lose power if they don't. A lot of leaders, they understand, like, I'm in charge of people, so I just tell people what to do. Your job as a leader is not to tell people what to do. Your job as a leader is to lead people. Your job as a leader is to train them. Is to train your replacement. You should always be training people to do your job and work yourself out of a job so that you can have that upward mobility, so that your team becomes more capable. And when you give your team more autonomy to do the things that they need to do, first you need to train them how to do it. That's number one. You can't give them autonomy unless you train them how to do it. But once they're trained in how to do it, then you start giving your power to them. Like, okay, go take care of it. If you need help, let me know and I'll come back and I'll help you. And we do that, really well in the SEAL teams. We're able to give our leadership power away. I don't need to tell you what to do. You already know how to do it. Here's my directive. Go do this. This is my commander's intent. Go do this. If you need help, you call me. If you get to a position where you don't have the skill set or the tools that you need, let me know and I will I'll get those skill sets to you. Maybe you need me to drop bombs on someone and I've got the radio man right next to me, like you're being, surrounded. Okay, check. Roger. Hey, Fung, can you drop some bombs on those bad guys over there? Check. We got it. And then you drop bombs and then they can, the rest of the guys can go finish their they're part of that mission. And so the pandemic absolutely exposed that because, the way that corporate America is built is like, I'm the man and you work for me. I give you no power other than what I tell you to do. And now that we're in more of a remote working environment, there's still a lot of people there like, I don't want to come back to the office. And you have organizations like Apple where people like left California and moved to Texas so they didn't have to pay state tax and things like that. And they're like, I don't want to come back. Like, I've been doing my job just fine for the last 2 years, like really well remotely. Why do I need to come back and sit in this like corporate environment? So Apple is, they have generally highly trained people that are doing that job. You don't need to have them in the office. Maybe like bring them back once a quarter or something, just to like, it's face to face is the best way to communicate, the end. But if you can empower your team to work remotely and be more effective that way. That's how we are such an effective fighting force on the battlefield. Is we, I'm not the man on the battlefield. I'm just a guy, and they report, but they're doing all the work. I don't have to go. But I can also leave my leadership position, and I can go kick doors and shoot people in the face if I need to do that as well. So
Right.
we're trained all the way across all the way around.
That's awesome, actually. So I think my key takeaway from this whole thing right here actually was that the current leaders are not actually empowering people with decision-making skills, right? And really keeping them in the, like, a cog, like a gear in a system, right? I think that's really something like,
but oftentimes it's not even the leader's fault, because they don't know how to lead. They've never been taught how to lead. They're put into this position of leadership because of a piece of paper that they have, some sort of education they have, not real world leadership position. So we put people into positions because of, maybe who they know or where they went to school or whatever, some piece of paper that they have, some certification. It doesn't make them a leader. They don't know how to lead. So that's something I think that's really what is missing in corporate America, is the ability to lead. And that's why, my coaching company is really to help leaders learn how to lead their organizations effectively.
Do you feel that someone must be a good follower first before leading? Like, you must.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said before, we all learn from experience. You can read a book. I mean, Elon Musk is probably an anomaly here, because he learned how to build rockets by reading books, because he couldn't find good rocket scientists, good rocket scientists to help build SpaceX. So he just started it on his own. He's like, I just started reading, and that's how we got started, until we got to a point then I could hire real good aeronautical engineers and rocket scientists and things like that. But most of us from childhood, we learn from failure. We learn from doing it right. We learn from examples that are taught to us from our parents and school teachers and peers and things like that. And so in order to be a good leader, some people are just naturally charismatic, and I hate those people because they have a little bit of an advantage over the rest of us that are not quite as charismatic, but they still have to learn how to be a good leader. They still had to learn good decision-making skill sets. And even though you're charismatic, that doesn't make you a good leader. That just makes you likable, which makes becoming a good leader a little bit easier. But I've seen super charismatic people crush under pressure. They'll be the nicest people and your best friend. And then when they get a lot of pressure that they don't know how to handle, they will turn on you in a second, because they're out of their comfort zone. They never learn the skills. So I think it's awesome to be, and so again, in the SEAL teams, we have these officers. I was an enlisted guy. Officers are really the guys that are in charge, but the enlisted guys really run the show. And so I would have these young officers come in, and they're in leadership positions, but they don't know how to lead. And so they actually end up following the enlisted guys and doing what they say until they learn a basic skill set and how to do it. And then they find their own voice in how to lead.
That's
and
true.
so to kind of, go ahead.
Options would be with the senior enlisted all the time under their wing. That's right.
Yeah. So you have that mentor thing built in the military. You don't have it built in corporate America. It's you have a master's in something in business administration or whatever, come in and be the CFO of this organization, or take over this thing of, you've got 87 IT credentials under your belt. You should be able to come in and run. I don't want that guy to run my IT team. I want him to do code and do the IT stuff. I'll bring a leader in who doesn't know anything about IT, but knows how to run a team, and have him run the team, have him figure all that stuff out.
So what about, okay, so here's the challenge in everything, right? Going from people having, their own building, office space, and then transitioning to remote, right? And everyone that is listening to this, of course, we want everyone on our team to be independent. That'd be a dream, right? They could be independent. They can make their own decisions. Some people may struggle with it, being oh, I really want to control everything. But how do you find that balance of the training versus letting them implement and like make mistakes and grow? And the reason why I ask is because, you know, I had this conversation with Wally before, and this happens even from a sales environment, is like sometimes we'll give them training, we'll let them go and flourish. And then like certain things, if they don't ask questions that you would think would be like common sense, is not so much common, right? So then it comes back and it's like, oh, wow, this is something so trivial. I didn't know that I needed to add an SOP for this or build training, right? But then there also comes a point to where through that process, some people are just not at the identity level of through whatever that may mean. Maybe it was upbringing or past, right? But then in the Navy, just like you said, it's not easy to become a Navy SEAL, right? They have a hard process to get people out, right? So do you think, even from a business standpoint, that kind of, obviously not the extreme as becoming a Navy SEAL, but do you think that there needs to be that first focal point of like very difficult to go through and to weed out people who just aren't the right identity and then bring them into the training and get them to be independent? Or do you think that you should like just open the floodgates, let people get trained, and whoever sticks, and if not, you know, screw it?
So yeah, I think you asked two different questions, or I have two different thoughts about what you're asking. So I think one of them was like, you know, there's a theory of hire fast, fire fast.
Yeah.
There's kind of that thought process. And then there's the other kind of theory of like, just try to find the highest quality candidate for the job.
Yep.
And I think it depends what the job is. So I think I like the hire fast, fire fast. And if you, like I had this conversation on a podcast, I think last week, and we were talking about, and I've had it with some coaching clients as well. You know, the guy was talking about like, I was doing hire fast, fire fast, but then I wanted to have like more like special operators on my sales team. So I just took more time to find the better, like I started hiring veterans instead of like that wanted to be, you know, they wanted to make six figures, you know, in the first year. So I found higher quality candidates and I trained them in what to do. And so sort of the analogy that I give, so SEAL training really is hire fast, fire fast. You get there, you meet a certain criteria. First off, you want to do it. Then you meet the criteria to get there. You show up, and then you can quit anytime you want. You can leave like you don't want to be cold, wet, and sandy anymore. You can leave. You don't want to be uncomfortable underwater. You can leave. You don't want to run anymore. You can leave. It's hire a little bit slowly, but fire very quickly. You know, they fire themselves. But once you make it through SEAL training, you have a very high quality candidate. That doesn't make them a Navy SEAL. They're not ready to be on the SEAL team. There's still other training that we do. And even when they get to the SEAL team, they're still not ready to deploy. We have all sorts of work to do to build them up to the level in order to deploy. So it's an 18-month process once they show up at the SEAL team before we actually let them deploy. And so one of the things that I do is for young leaders, specifically junior officers who are going to take over those roles as senior officers one day and really manage people on the battlefield, is we do this thing. It's a practice gunfight where we're practicing. We're patrolling along in the woods or the desert or wherever we are, and we have these targets that pop up and they start shooting back at us. And you know, me as a leader, I already know what calls need to be made. I know how to maneuver the element. I know what the terrain is saying. I can read the terrain. I can read the team. I can read the enemy very quickly. And I know what calls to make in order to move us out of that ambush that we just walked into, and how to outmaneuver the enemy, whatever that decision needs to be made. But me as a senior leader, if I'm making those calls, I'm not training the junior guy on how to do it. So what I will do is I will position myself right next to that junior officer who's supposed to be making the calls. And, you know, we'll be patrolling along, and then the training cadre initiates the contact, initiates the ambush. We start shooting, we start maneuvering out of the ambush, we shoot, move, and communicate. And so my job as I tell the junior officer, I'm like, I'm just consider me a new guy. I don't know anything. But if you get into trouble and I might pimp you with some information. And I've done this with corporate leaders who want to move out of this position and move to something else. Like they want to train their replacement. And that's what I'm doing essentially. So, you know, if I see that junior officer start shooting, like standing rounds down range, number one, he's not looking at his team. He's not looking at the enemy and what the enemy is doing. And he's not looking at the terrain around him to see what maneuver we need to make. So if he does that, the next run, I'll let him do it again. Then I'll take his bullets away and I won't let him shoot. And so I've got, 5 SEAL secrets of leadership. The leaders get no bullets. That's secret number 2. But secret number 1 is you have to shoot, move, and communicate. And that leader needs to be able to look around. He needs to see what's happening on the battlefield. He needs to see what the terrain is doing around him. And then he needs to make a call to maneuver the team out of that ambush. And so if he's having a hard time, like figuring out what maneuver to make, what call to make, I might say, what about that piece of terrain right over there? What do you think about that? And if he's still taking a long time, what if we move behind that terrain? What if we move back and behind? And I'm still shooting. I'm having fun because that's my job, is to have fun right now and give him the authority, give my power to him so that he can make those successes or failures as a call. And then we make the maneuver. Maybe it's a good move, maybe it's not. And then at the end of that run, we have an after action review. And then what went right, what went wrong, how can we fix it? And then we do it again from a different scenario, different angle. And I think even just doing something that we've talked about, Dylan, is doing scripting, doing practicing your sales script. What if they say this, and kind of throw these scenarios at your sales team to figure it out. Okay, what's your pain? What's your pleasure? All these other things, and to try to close the sale. It's the same thing in the SEAL teams and in leadership. You give those junior leaders that experience through sometimes success, but mostly through failure. And once they succeed enough times, you see that they start to understand what's happening on the battlefield, what's happening on the business field. But if you don't give your power to them and allow them to run with it and succeed or fail, however it works out, and then train them on the right way to actually do it. I mean, they may come up with some ideas that you've never even thought of, and that's awesome. Like having that open communication, that open two-way communication. They may say, well, what if I did this? And I'll say, okay, check, let's try that. The next time you're in that scenario, make that call and see what happens. I don't need to tell them yay or nay, because it actually might work. It's maybe something I never thought of, which is the beautiful thing about the SEAL teams is we don't lead through domination and power. We lead through let's go kick some ass and shoot people in the face that need to be shot in the face. So, but we do it in, if you have a better idea than me, awesome, let's do it and get rid of my idea because it was stupid. You're more efficient. So in the corporate world, if we can do things like that, it would be fantastic. But most people let their ego get in the way, and they won't listen to someone that's underneath them, that's below them, in how to improve processes and procedures. Well, unfortunately.
Sure. And the also thing is a lot of people in corporate world are more on the processes, procedures, like, hey, it's already set this way. They're kind of focused on duplication, right? So someone listening to this could be like, well, William, if I make it that way and I already have my processes and it's already quote unquote working, right? And that's our way of duplicating. But we're always giving people freedom of reign to test stuff and be independent. Well, William, now they're not following the proven process, which is what has already been working, right? So what would you say to that for people that are listening and they think that?
Have you ever heard of Facebook?
100%.
I'm pretty sure that's the process that they use. I mean, I could be wrong. I did listen to Mark Zuckerberg in an interview, and that's pretty much what he said is we try to fail quickly. We have this process in place, but that's also part of our process is let's see how quickly we can break it.
Yeah.
Which makes us more efficient.
Run it, break the process, improve as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like
that. But that's an open mind. That's like, it's many people are my way or the highway. Mm-hmm. And until they open that up and they're okay with failure. And again, the A in naked is accept failure and learn from those processes. Like if you just use some different examples, Michael Jordan, he's missed more than 9,000 shots in his basketball career, probably the best basketball player of all time. He's lost more than 300 games, 30 game-winning shots. But what he did after he missed those shots is he went back to the gym and he practiced those shots that he missed until he didn't miss them anymore, or whatever Tim Grover told him to do. But he used those failures to create massive success.
Yeah. I like to like kind of now my brain's kind of spinning is kind of the analogy you gave too, because you're right. When they come in, they're like, okay, if you hate the dirt, you hate the sand, you know, this sucks. Like, it's okay, man, you can leave, you can quit. Right. And I think a mistake a lot of organizations make is like whatever role and responsibility is, there's always going to be that shit. And I feel like a lot of people make the mistake of hiring is they hide the shit. They're just not upfront about it. I'm just saying like, yeah, dude, you'll be here. It's gonna be 12 weeks. You're gonna be crawling through fucking sand. You're gonna be doing this. You're gonna be doing that. And it's not their expectations. So I like that, because I feel like a lot of people need to have those expectations. Just be open about the shit ahead of time and just let them know, like, hey, we told you this is what it's going to be through. Get through that period, and then that kind of like earns the right to now get into the systems and the processes. Do you feel like that's a really good structure even for organizations to have?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, but it's hard. You know, culture runs the organization. I heard a quote not that long ago. It said, culture eats strategy for lunch or breakfast or whatever it is. And, you know, and that's why we're successful in the SEAL teams, is we have that culture of like, okay, of failure, of we want to be the best, and we're going to do whatever we need to get there. And it doesn't matter if we hurt each other's feelings, we're going to hurt each other's feelings. We got thick enough skin. And if we're able to cultivate that in corporate America, you know, some organizations have, where they've built that culture into, okay, let's try it and let it fail until it doesn't fail anymore. I mean, what's the guy's name that created the incandescent light bulb? Thomas Edison. He learned more than 10,000 ways to not create the incandescent light bulb. How many times have we failed 2 or 3 times and quit doing whatever it was? Like, oh, that just doesn't work. Well, let's keep working through that process. Certainly not 100 times or 1,000 times, and definitely not 10,000 times. But if we could get that mentality going, like, it's okay to fail. It's the abundance and scarcity mindset. Well, my system is working right now, but what if we shouldn't change it? It works. Just because it's not failing doesn't mean it's actually working. What if you tweaked one thing here or one thing there, and you're able to 10x your production for your working system? Now it's really working. Well, but it was working before. What's the difference?
I definitely had that battle before in business, for sure. Like, so just for context, I've run like some really big sales organizations. Had a team of 32 people, 30 of which were actually salespeople and doing a lot of chat DMs, like chat closing, basically, right? And that was like one of the biggest like contention points in our leadership as well, which is like, hey, we have a system, we have a process, we have a script, we have a process that's working. But it's like, if you want to innovate and you want to like take it to the next level, it's like, do you change it all at once? Do you kind of fractalize it and give you like a testing ground where you can kind of see results and that? So how do you feel about that in terms of like introducing a new process or a new pivot? Like in this exact scenario, right? Where it's like, let's say it's a sales process even.
So it depends. So if you have a system that's working, I would, you know, you can do your A/B testing and you can do incremental changes because you're already, it's working. If you have something that's kind of working, but not really, maybe you make big adjustments.
I see what you mean.
So, you know, for example, this is the analogy that I give. So I used to be a sniper instructor and things like that. And you would think that all SEALs would be really good at sighting in their guns. They are not. And that's all we're going to talk about that. Right. But they're really good at shooting, just like sighting them in. They don't know all the, you know, some guys are really good at talking on the radio, or they're really good at blowing stuff up, or, you know, other things. I was really good at shooting, and guns were my thing. And you know, being a sniper and a sniper instructor, that to me being an expert on those systems, to include the sights and things like that. And what I would see oftentimes, mostly from guys in leadership positions, is they would maybe sighting in a new weapon, and they're making these small incremental adjustments, and their bullet impacts aren't moving to the bullseye like they want them to. And when I would see that, I would wait. And then I would go over, once I saw the frustration really kick in, I would go over and it's like, can I see your gun? And I would take it and I would make these bold adjustments on their optic. And then I would hand it back to them. And they're like, what have you done? You just like broke my gun. It's never going to work. And I'm like, just shoot the rounds. Let's go. And they would shoot, and the bullets would be moved across the paper, like past the bullseye, which is okay. but much closer to the center from where they were shooting. They were hitting over here, and they're like, oh my God. So I made those bold adjustments. Now they can make those incremental adjustments back to the center. So sometimes, in life and business and whatever it is, if it's not working, those small adjustments, just make these giant adjustments, like almost like doing the wrong thing, like almost try to break it to see where it lands and then make the adjustments on the way back.
Boom. There's a knowledge boner moment right there, folks.
I just took some notes for sure.
I just took some notes right there. That was a really good one.
Huge adjustments. Yeah, I like that a lot, because it's hard to find that balancing act, like, because I know even for my team, a lot of times during reviews, if something's not working, I'll go like, oh, can you review it? I'm like, why are you doing this, and this? Oh, I was trying something new. And I'm like, but like, it's nothing like the process that I promise you already works. Like, why are you guys straying for what's been working the whole time? Right. So I get, like, a lot of people want to go through and then when tests say, oh, what can I make it better? I guess in those cases, right, to your point, what they should have done is rather than doing a full spectrum, completely different introduction and ending and all this stuff, they should have tried fine tuning, doing small adjustments of testing to a broad one, because it's already working. Right.
Yeah.
I like
that. If you're already like close to the bullseye, then just keep doing small adjustments. If you're nowhere close to the bullseye, make big adjustments.
Gotcha. And then, so what about mindset? Because I know obviously you're really big when it comes to mindset, and after, who only knows what you've been through being a Navy SEAL and then getting back on track and getting your head on your shoulders and, now getting into business, right? So how do you feel you can keep the mindset at a high level for somebody's team and organization? Because, like, obviously, like, personal development is very, very important, right? But like, it's like one of those things where you can't really force it. You can't really force somebody to get mindset and personal development. Because I've noticed even on my team, there's ones where, like, literally, like the A players of where I'm just impressed. I'm like, damn, they did extra stuff. They're always like showing up. I didn't even tell them to, right? And then the other ones is like, hey guys,
they already have that built-in decentralized command and control.
Yeah,
they're good to go.
Like, yo, why aren't you
just
guys
fire and forget?
Looking at this person, like, why aren't you guys do that? It's like, I don't want to force you guys to do this. I want you guys to be independent, right? So what would you do in those situations for members on your team
who are stuck, who aren't really moving the ball forward?
Yeah, I mean, do you just force it on them and just be like, hey guys, y'all need to start doing more personal development mindset or add extra training? And because at that point, because again, to your point, right, we all want them to be independent and operate at that level, but at the same time, you don't want to feel like you're like micromanaging them. But if they're not going to do it on their own accord and you don't want to force it as quote unquote rule, what would you do in those cases?
I think if they're not getting it in the role that they're in, maybe find a new role for them to do, a new position. Like, figure out what their actual zone of genius is. What are they really good at? Like I said, not everyone is good at shooting long range. Not everyone is good with weapons. Sometimes we're all SEALs, but maybe you're better at talking on the radio and, to drop bombs from aircraft than I am. I suck at talking on the radio. I mean, like giving coordinates and locations and things like that. I can do it. I'm not the best at it. I'm better at managing guys. I'm better at, doing other things on the SEAL team, on the mission, command and control, things like that. So I'm not going to be the radio guy. I'm not going to be the comms guy. I'm not going to be the JTAC. I'm going to be the sniper. I'm going to be the breacher. I'm going to be the guy who's kicking doors and shooting people in the face. So I know that that's not a good position for me. So even though I can talk on the radio, I let someone else do it because they're better at it. I do the things that I'm really good at. And so as a leader in my organization, I find who's good at what. What school do you want to go to? Do you want to be a sniper? Awesome. Let's see how good you can shoot first. Okay, you're pretty good at that. I'll send you to sniper school. See if you have the patience and the knowledge, the headspace to do that job. Oh, you want to be a breacher? You want to blow stuff up? Awesome. You want to be a medic? I don't want to be a medic. Some guys do. I send them to that course, and they come back and they're really good at that. So you find what people are good at and what they want to do, and then put them in those roles. Now, if they continue to fail and fail and fail after you've made that adjustment in your organization or for that person, then there's other decisions that have to be made. Maybe they may have to go find another occupation.
Okay. Well, so for everyone that's listening to the show right now, obviously we already established that you must be a good follower before you can be a good leader, right? And you can't really craft other leaders if you're not a leader yourself, right? But so if someone's kind of maybe in the beginning stages of their business and, but they don't have anyone to follow and they're a solopreneur, then what do they do? How can they increase their leadership to get to the point of leading by example before, hiring and transitioning leadership?
I would say hire a coach, because a coach they're going to time collapse information for you.
Yep.
Find a coach who is familiar with what you're trying to do, who can help grow your solopreneur company. They can help grow you into whatever you want to be. Don't find someone that's, good at one thing, a coach in the IT world when you're trying to do, sell supplements. It's not going to match. So if you find someone who is really good at selling supplements, like, how do I do that? How do I market? How do I market this illicit product that I have, according to Facebook and Instagram and everyone else? How do I market this illicit product that is not illicit into the world? So, I've reached out to I have several business coaches who have helped me kind of navigate those areas in my life and in my world to be pretty successful, and then also help me pivot into more of the coaching, personal development world as well.
Gotcha. No, this is good. I got another scenario that just came to my head, because like you're dropping some huge bombs right now. So what if you're in a position and you notice that someone in leadership is not a good leader, but you're below them, right? And let's say normally you and I both know that you're supposed to go up the chain of command, but maybe it's like at the top, there is no chain of command, right? How can one go about having that conversation and saying, like, I realize that this person has a lot of baggage, they're not a good leader, but they want to be independent, they want to step up, but they're just getting friction from the top and they can't, right? What would somebody do in that situation?
That's tough, because there's a lot of politics that can be in play there, whether it's in the military and certainly in the corporate world. You could have someone that's in a leadership position that is just not good, mm-hmm. and they're best friends with like the CEO or the person who's running the organization. So you have to tiptoe very carefully in there. But what I would say is, a good leader is supposed to be someone who is giving their power away so that they can, move up. And so you as a good follower, or you as a good leader underneath that bad leader, you just take everything on and you become the leader. You become that person, and you have to be a little bit selfless for a while, but eventually the people on top are going to see your performance. Like, this bad leader who toxic or whatever their issue is, they're not dealing with all the stuff that you're dealing with. And you take all of that, you basically replace them without saying, I'm replacing that person. Like, there may be some authorities that you don't have, and you just maybe have to go to that person for those specific authorities. But if you just take everything off their plate, they're going to think they're doing an amazing job, which is fine. But the people who are above them will see that you're actually doing everything over time. It's not going to be instant. There's no instant gratification here. We all like instant gratification. It doesn't exist for real. If you want to be truly successful, you just have to I would say, take it on at your level. Don't let it get up there, because it's going to be a shit show once it hits that level, and only go there when you need to. And if you can find ways to circumvent that leader, do it. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for an organization, but sometimes it's a necessary evil.
Gotcha. Yeah, because you're right. You'd have to be very selfless, because that leader is going to be getting all the credit temporarily for the time being, as like, oh man, you're doing an amazing job.
Yeah. But like, do you want to be a part of that organization? Do you see the value of that organization? Do you want to grow? Is it going to help you grow? What's the next step? Mm-hmm. Can you remove that leadership level from where you are, and take that on? And then, because people will see that, people will see action. They may not give you any credit, but people will see it. They'll see what's going on, and you're going to build more trust with the higher ups in that organization.
True. Yeah. Because that's hard to combat, right? Because that eats away at you as an individual too, like performing to the best of your ability, but dealing with the frustration, and like really, like how can people get themselves in that kind of mindset to not let other stuff and frustrations really go and get to you, and staying positive in those situations, because that's not easy for the average person to do.
Yeah. And I don't care how selfless you are, we all want to be recognized for doing a good job.
100%.
And I've been in positions like that where I wasn't being recognized by leadership, but I was recognized by the people who were under me, and they're like, dude, I'm so glad that you're here and not that person. I'm like, thank you. That just like, my heart just grew. I'm like, okay, I feel good about doing what I've been doing for such a long time.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Just kind of just keep putting in the action, lead by example, and get the recognition, or just go and look into other alternatives.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge.
It depends. It's not like a cookie cutter answer.
For sure, right? And so, do you have any like daily tips and stuff for people? Like maybe if they're what's kind of actionable items that people can do each day to kind of keep themselves in a good level of mindset, and like, dealing with their frustrations and all that. Because I know that you're really good with your processes of dealing with people that struggle with depression, anxiety, and all these things, right? Keeping yourself at a good state level. What's a daily task that somebody listening could do to keep themselves always operating despite the frustrations and the baggage to keep moving forward?
I think lots of people, everyone talks about your morning routine. And I think the morning routine is shit if you don't have a good nighttime routine. So for me, I figure out what I'm going to do the next day, the night before. Like I live with this book or one like it, and I know what I'm going to do the next day. If I wake up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do my morning routine. My morning routine is I get up, I live, a 10-minute walk from the beach. I walk to the beach. It's good to clear my head, walk to the beach. I do a run on the beach, and then I walk home. Like I'm all good and warmed up and I'm ready to go. And it's a little bit of a get the body moving, get the brain moving, get that BDNF going. You're already in a more positive attitude for moving ahead and starting today. Or there's a mountain behind my house. I'll go, like it's a big loop that I'll do. Either one of those two things. And so I've already started my day with some exercise. So if I don't get my workout in at the end of the day, not a big deal. Exercise works great for the brain. It works great for you. So you have this, so hopping back over to the CBD side. So the body has this thing called an endocannabinoid system where you create natural endogenous cannabinoids like CBD. And one of those cannabinoids that you create that feeds that endocannabinoid system is called anandamide. It's also known as the bliss molecule. It helps with the upregulation of serotonin. So if you get a workout in sometime during the day, it's the runner's high, if you will. And so that's, it's closely related to THC more than CBD, but it feeds this endocannabinoid system. So if you start the day with a little bit of exercise, then you're already like getting yourself in the right mood to shed some of that baggage, to have more positive self-talk. But set yourself up for success the night before by knowing what you're going to do. Like have your clothes or whatever. Like I lay my clothes out the night. I know it seems silly, but I've done it for like 30 years now. I mean, I'm very young, but I've done it for, pretty much my entire life. Put my clothes out, so I have no decision-making fatigue first thing in the morning. Am I going to wear pants or am I going to wear shorts? Am I going to wear running shoes? Like my socks and shoes and my shirt, it's all laying right there. I get up, I put it on, I use the bathroom, and then I get out the door and I do it. So I don't have that, like, what am I going to wear? What shirt? Am I going to wear a hat today? I don't know.
Gotcha.
Just removing like silly things like that, doing those little things makes it easier for you to attack the hard things.
For sure. And how important, in your opinion, is it to really focus, for everyone listening, whether they're in an organization, have their own company, to focus on things that only you can control, and kind of stuff that maybe it's even frustrating you. Maybe you're in an organization, there's higher ups, but obviously, let's be honest, there's not really much you can control there, right? So how important is it to focus on only what you can control, and then how can you really kind of deter, or do you have like an exercise or something that you could do to kind of be like, okay, that's outside of my control, like fuck it, let it go?
I think that's the key. I mean, the answer was in the question. Is I've seen this picture going around, and it's like a guy in the Olympics like swimming, and he's looking over at the guy next to him, and the guy next to him is just in front of him. So the guy lost the race because he was worried about what everyone else was doing. And I have a client that this actually happens to her, where she is the head producer in her company in sales. Like no one is even close to her by double. But everyone's like, what? How are you, like, aren't you worried about so-and-so catching you? She's like, I don't care. And we've had this conversation. She's like, I only care about what's in front of me. What am I producing? whatever they're doing is not going to affect my income. I only care about what I'm making, not what they're making. They can make 3 times what I make. I don't care. I care about what I make. What are my goals? And if you can put yourself into that mindset, you can do what Tim Grover calls flex the id gap muscle, the I don't give a fuck muscle, and only focus on yourself and move forward. But that takes time and practice and effort. But you know, oftentimes we get stuck in like, what are they doing? How are they doing it? If you can only care about yourself and just like stay in your swim lane and only care about like what you're going to make and what you're going to do, your life you'll have so much less baggage. You'll care less.
Bro, you got to get a t-shirt that says flex the I don't give a fuck muscle. Flex the
I may.
muscle. That's awesome. Well, that's awesome, man. So huge knowledge boner moments this entire time. And you know, finally, where can people go to follow you and find like your content, see what you have going on, and reach out to you?
I think the best place to find me. So first, I'll say to get the Get Naked mindset and think like a Navy SEAL. These are 5 SEAL secrets. I would go to 5sealsecrets.com. The number 5sealsecrets.com. You can also follow me on Instagram, william.r.branum. I'm on Facebook. Also, have no idea what any of those handles are. I'm at Naked Warrior Recovery on Instagram, also LinkedIn. My CBD website is nw-recovery.com. And I think or you can Google me. I'm pretty Googleable. I was talking to my aunt yesterday and I was like, just Google me and like, see what happens. Because so I didn't know this until my daughter, she wrote like something about, she's 8 years old and she wrote something about, you know, every day she has to do like a journal entry. And so she wrote, my dad has a company about get naked. It's like, oh, this is not going to be good. And she wrote like naked. N stands for never quit. A, accept failure. K, kill mediocrity. And like her teacher was like, Emily, what does your dad do? And she's like, so she Googled me and played like a podcast clip that I was on in class. And she was like, oh, okay, never mind. So
that's funny. Like what's going on with your dad?
What is he doing? So you can certainly Google me. Yeah, I'm Googleable.
Yeah, for sure. Well, awesome. Well, in closing, everyone, biggest takeaways, right, is number 1, if you have baggage, you got to get rid of that shit. Absolutely, 110%. If you're going to be a good leader, you must first be a good follower. If you're stuck on a process in your system and business, depending on what kind of change you must make, you may determine, is this going to require a big change? Or if something's already working, then just do small changes, right? And then really focus on putting training in place so that your team members can become independent, right? Lead by example, help guide them. And then that is how you're going to win in correct mindset. That's how you're going to win in leadership. And William, thanks so much, man, for being on the show. Guys, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
We're going to put it down below the description. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day. And I'll see you guys on the next episode of the Knowledge Boner Experience.